welcome back to the Wachua Global Show. I am very grateful to have you here with me. Today, and that's why I just wanted to get a little comfortable. I'm going to draw on every ounce of my resilience because we are talking about heartbreak. About 8 months ago, a relationship that meant the world to me ended abruptly. No warning, no closure, no real conversation. And it was just over. And since then, I have been struggling. Now, heartbreak is often dismissed as commonplace life experience, but actual empirical research shows that heartbreak can be deeply traumatic with both psychological and physiological consequences. The end of a meaningful romantic relationship, whether through breakup, divorce, or loss, can trigger intense stress responses. Heartbreak inflicts profound, and I mean profound, psychological pain. The neuroscience studies demonstrate that the pain of an unwanted breakup, listen to this, activates the same regions in the brain as physical pain. In one study, people who were shown photos of their ex partners who had broken up with them exhibited activation in brain areas involved in processing physical pain. And a psychologist, Naomi Eisenberger, she did work that found that being romantically rejected engages the brain's alarm systems just like physical injury. In other words, our brains are hardwired to hurt when we lose an attachment bond. This is why heartbreak can literally feel agonizing on a mental and emotional level. Intense rumination can occur and is very common. The mind becomes stuck on the breakup, continuously and uncontrollably replaying memories or thinking through what is, what if. And if the breakup involved rejection, shame may also take hold. The person who was left and rejected feels fundamentally unworthy or not enough, which compounds the emotional injury. In fact, mental health experts recognize that heartbreak can lead to clinical trauma in some instances. And there's research that has documented that in some cases, a severe breakup or loss can precipitate post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And those who have a history of earlier emotional trauma or insecure attachments are especially at risk. Heartbreak can lower people's threshold for stress and make them more prone to developing PTSD symptoms. And then psychobiological studies show that the flood of stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, etc., released during a breakup can imprint the emotional trauma in the brain's amygdala, and that is the fear center, essentially hard coding the memory of that pain and fear. Like it wires the memory of the heartbreak into your brain. You can't just remove it. Heartbreak is also a major risk factor for depression. It's not uncommon for a severe heartbreak to spiral into a clinical depressive episode. Now, while not everyone will develop a diagnosable disorder, there may be feelings of deep sadness, hopelessness, and loss of interest in life, and this can be pervasive in the aftermath of heartbreak. And it can be accompanied by low self esteem, being left, or feeling unloved. And that can also precipitate a collapse of self confidence and self worth. The individual may also internalize the rejection, leading to feelings of inadequacy or even shame, which in turn feeds depressive thoughts. And heartbreak can also heighten anxiety. So the sudden loss of attachment figure can create intense insecurity about the future. Thoughts like, will I always be alone? Or even fear of further abandonment. And then some people develop acute anxiety symptoms such as panic attacks or compulsive behaviors in the wake of a breakup. Now, researchers have also likened the emotional state of heartbreak to that of a drug withdrawal. So, one analysis noted that couples kind of like become addicted to the steady state trickle of natural opiates while in a relationship. So, a breakup deprives the brain of those opiates, those rewards. And this can result in craving and obsessive longing, which is similar to an addict's craving a fix. Like heartbroken individuals often feel addicted to their ex. I mean, they may know intellectually that the relationship is over, but emotionally, they experience powerful cravings for contact or reconciliation, much like an addict's urge. Now, this biological reality underscores that getting over heartbreak can be as challenging as overcoming a physical addiction. Now, all of these reactions and studies demonstrate how emotionally destabilizing heartbreak can be. But, like, for real, heartbreak doesn't only wreak havoc on the mind, it also produces actual concrete physical symptoms that can even endanger one's health. The mind body connection means that intense emotional stress translates into bodily reactions. So the term heartbreak is not just metaphorical. Many people feel actual chest pain or pressure during emotional anguish. And there's stress induced chest tightness, like a heavy feeling in the chest, or sometimes a sensation of the heart racing or skipping. These are frequently described. In fact, Scientific American reports that the phrases heartache and gut wrenching accurately correspond to real physical sensations, like muscle tightness in the chest, increased heart rate, churned up stomach, and shortness of breath are all part of the body's response to intense emotional stress. So if you feel like your heart is hurting post breakup, in a way, it truly is. The mind's anguish sends distress signals through the nervous system that the body is experiencing as real pain. The stress of a breakup also triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And persistently elevated cortisol can leave someone feeling drained and exhausted. Like heartbreak victims, and I like what the research says heartbreak victims, is the word victims, often describe constant fatigue or weakness. But here's the thing though, like over time, the chronic stress also weakens your immune system. And studies have found that recently separated or divorced individuals showed compromised immune function with increased, and I want you to remember this part, with increased inflammatory markers and a subsequent state of lower immunity and depression. In other words, heartbreak, like this is no joke, heartbreak can literally make you sick by reducing your body's defenses. It is not uncommon for someone going through heartbreak to come down with frequent colds, unexplained aches, or other illnesses in the aftermath of severe heartbreak, as the body's resources are sapped by stress. In extreme cases, the physical impact of heartbreak can be life threatening. So there is a condition called tapotubo cardiomyopathy, commonly known as broken heart syndrome. It's a thing. And it can be triggered by sudden emotional trauma, such as a breakup or the death of a loved one. So, broken heart syndrome involves a sudden weakening of the heart muscle, causing symptoms that actually mimic a heart attack. So you'll get chest pain, shortness of breath, and even an abnormal ECG reading. The only difference is, unlike a typical heart attack, in these cases, your coronary arteries are not blocked. Instead, a surge of stress hormones essentially stuns the heart. Now, most patients recover with time, often if you couple it with months of heart muscle function returns. But in some acute cases, it can actually be dangerous and fatal. Like people have died from it. This phenomenon of broken heart syndrome dramatically illustrates how devastating heartbreak can be on the body. Like someone in perfectly good health can be knocked down by a breakup so intensely, and I want you to remember this part too, so intensely that it sends them to the emergency room with heart failure symptoms. Like ongoing heartbreak stress can contribute to a host of longer term health issues as well. Like chronic stress and depression from heartbreak can lead to high blood pressure, sleep disorders, or even substance abuse. So, example, drinking too much alcohol to numb the pain, which then can harm your health. And in older individuals, the profound stress is linked to increased risk of cardiovascular events and even, catch this, higher mortality. There can be higher mortality in the months following a major separation. And this is according to several research. The bottom line is that prolonged emotional distress translates into physiological wear and tear on the body. And sometimes this is referred to as allostatic load. Like heartbreak is not a trivial matter. It exacts a real physical toll. But let me be real here. This isn't just mumbo jumbo from research. This is where I'm going to get real. I'm speaking from experience. I lived almost everything the research describes when I got my heart broken. Now, in 2006, I survived a helicopter crash. It was a military helicopter that was transporting my grandfather's body for burial. It was a military funeral. And we crashed due to poor visibility. And I was one of the last people to make it out of the helicopter before it completely exploded. And only 3 out of 15 or so people were hospitalized, myself and the two pilots. I had cuts, bruises, and a concussion, and I was later diagnosed with PTSD. I couldn't speak about the crash. I couldn't attend the burial. I had to be sedated and escorted back to the US because I was at NYU at the time. I couldn't fly or let. My mother had to come live with me in the US for a while. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't travel by air for a while. And I was being treated for PTSD. I was on medications, going to therapy for over a year after the crash. Now, I'm talking about the helicopter crash and my PTSD from that incident because the heartbreak I went through felt like that. Okay, so my ex broke up with me over text on Thursday, 22nd August, 2024. It was around 7 p.m. When I read the text, I was completely frozen. He said in the text that, in his words, I'm done with the relationship. He said I was too much, there's too much pressure, too many questions, no trust. When I read his words, it felt like my heart stopped beating. I couldn't speak about the situation to those close to me for a long time. I was in a complete daze. Like I know exactly where I was standing. I was standing at the at Chimota Shell filling station because I was buying gas. And then my body started to shut down. I had actual emotional and physical pain, unlike anything I had ever experienced. I was screaming, I was crying, I was aching. I was on the floor of my room every night, just broken. And 5 days after the breakup, I was hospitalized. I ended up in the emergency room. To be very honest, the very next day after the text, I started getting pains throughout my body, but I chalked it up to the gym that I was going to. But by Sunday, going into Monday, my mobility was impacted. I could barely stand, I could barely walk. I was in a lot of physical pain. My chest was tight, my heart hit. By Tuesday, I was admitted to the ER. I was jacked up on morphine. I was in a lot of physical and mental pain. The trauma of it all, the emotional devastation, the loss of a person who had become my anchor, it literally made me sick. My ESR, so ESR is a marker that tests for inflammation. My ESR was close to 200. For reference, a healthy ESR for a woman is around 20. Mine was close to 200. My body was inflamed from the emotional trauma. I was in the ER for 4 days, moved to the ward for 2 days, and bed rest at home for like 5 days. Like it was more than 10 days, 2 weeks. It was that bad. And it took that long for my body to recover. So it was during my hospitalization that I started to research and I learned that trauma, whether emotional, psychological, or physical, can activate the body's stress response. And if that stress becomes prolonged, it can lead to inflammatory reactions and real illness, like what I went through. And that is when I started looking even more into the trauma of heartbreak because it was crippling for me. Like for me personally, when I love someone, I often anchor my entire identity in the person that I love. Like I bond deeply, fully. It's not casual. It's not halfway. I pour myself into the connection. Their routines become mine. Their presence calms my chaos. And so when they leave abruptly, like the way it was, it feels like I cease to exist. I didn't just lose him, I lost the life I imagined with him, the dreams I had built around him, the emotional safety I thought I finally had. And more than that, I lost a part of me that only existed when he was around. Like heartbreak can affect anyone, but apparently, according to research, women's experiences of heartbreak have some unique dimensions worth noting. Like culturally, women are often encouraged to invest deeply in their relationships, and sometimes they may face societal pressures around romance and partnership and self worth. So when a relationship ends, women can then feel a profound sense of failure or loss of identity. And even empirical research suggests that women, on average, tend to experience stronger, like immediate emotional pain after a breakup compared to men. Men compartmentalize. Biologically, there are also interesting observations about women and heartbreak. Like I've already mentioned that stress cardiomyopathy, that's broken heart syndrome, it actually disproportionately affects women. Like around 90% of broken heart syndrome cases occur in middle aged to older women. And additionally, some studies of brain activity have found differences in how men and women process emotional distress. So women may have more activity in brain regions related to like emotional regulation when they're looking at ex-partners' pictures, which suggests that they are processing the emotion more immediately. Whereas men might suppress, or like I said, compartmentalize. Now, individuals are different, But it's clear that heartbreak can hit women extremely hard, both emotionally and physically. But heartbreak doesn't just differentiate by gender, it also differentiates by age. Like heartbreak is not only a phenomenon of youth. People over 40 and well beyond 40 experience breakups and divorces that can be more traumatic than those in like early adults. Like early adulthood, people are like, all right, keep it moving, next, next. But in midlife or later, individuals often have more, like they've more invested in a relationship. And therapists have even observed that a midlife breakup can feel like losing a part of yourself. So people over 40 going through heartbreak face real distinct challenges. Like there can be stigma or internalized shame about a relationship failure at that stage in life, which can, compound the emotional hurt. And then physiologically, heartbreak in midlife or later can be even more dangerous. You know why? Because the body is less resilient to stress. Like when you're in your 20s, you can handle stress much better than when you're in your 40s. So emotionally, a breakup after 40 can absolutely, absolutely cause major depression or anxiety. In fact, some mental health professionals consider later life heartbreak a triggering event for what's also known as an adjustment disorder, like an emotional crisis that some people have trouble recovering from. So it's not uncommon for someone in their 40s or 50s after a breakup to experience prolonged depression and to require therapy or even medication or even develop PTSD or PTSD like symptoms. Now, listen to this part, right? Individuals with other conditions going on with them, such as maybe they've experienced PTSD from like an earlier life event, may also struggle significantly with heartbreak. The loss can reactivate feelings of trauma and abandonment from the past. So, a person with a trauma history might experience a breakup not only as the loss of the current relationship, but also as a flood of past pain, making it really hard to cope. Voila. Like I am just sitting here checking all the heartbreak boxes. I'm a woman. I'm in my 40s. I have a prior PTSD diagnosis. I have trauma from childhood related to my father's schizophrenia. And I'm going through profound heartbreak. Like I'm an overachiever. I'm just like checking all of those boxes that make it traumatic. Heartbreak can be a true psychiatric crisis. And some people going through heartbreak may need extra support, such as increased therapy sessions, support groups, or possibly medication to prevent the heartbreak from triggering a downward spiral. The sad part, and this part really, it's sad, and that's why I wanted to do the research. The sad part is the trauma of heartbreak is often underestimated. Like people around you or outsiders might think, it's just a breakup. Everyone goes through it. But for a vulnerable individual, wow, a woman in her 40s with prior trauma, it can be a blow that knocks out your support. Like heartbreak is often underestimated in its impact, but far, far from being a trivial rite of passage, a severe heartbreak can be a traumatic event with enduring psychological and physical effects. Like scientifically, heartbreak can dysregulate the brain and the body, much like any major stressor or trauma, causing real pain, stress hormone surges, immune changes, and even heart dysfunction. Psychologically, it can trigger anything from short term grievance to long term depression or PTSD. especially in vulnerable individuals. Oof. The experiences of those who have lived through devastating heartbreak, like it can feel like your world is ending. What's the key takeaway? The key takeaway is that heartbreak should be taken seriously. And society sometimes diminishes romantic pain and people around you say things like there's plenty of fish in the sea or just get over it. But as research and real stories demonstrate, recovering from a broken heart is not an overnight process. It is a journey through genuine trauma and back. And by acknowledging the intense trauma of heartbreak, people can feel more validated in their experience and hopefully more empowered to seek help and utilize better coping strategies. Like heartbreak hurts. It hurts. I'm hurting. Like literally and figuratively, it hurts. And recognizing that it hurts is the first step to healing the wounds it leaves behind. So if you're listening to this and you've experienced a heartbreak that shattered you, I want you to know you are not alone. Please hear me when I say your emotions are valid, your pain is real. Check out the next episode, which is available right now. I'm giving you 2 episodes for strategies towards healing from heartbreak. Thank you for being here with me. This is the Boachra Glover Show. Real stories, real healing, real being. Please share this episode, subscribe, and if this moved you, please leave a comment. I would love to hear your stories. Until next time, stay kind to yourself.
When you look over your shoulder, for a minute I'll forget that I'm older. I wanna dance with you right now. Oh, you look as beautiful as ever, and I swear that every day you'll get better.